Let's talk about money, honey. One of the most common questions in astrology is, can my birth chart tell me about money? And the answer is absolutely yes. Your chart reveals your unique relationship with money, with abundance. It shows where there might be wounds around receiving, challenges, maybe in generating income, resources, or limitations passed down through family lines, ancestral patterns, and sometimes we can even trace the roots of your present day money story back to past lives. Or, and it could be both, intergenerational dynamics that ultimately shaped your beliefs about value, about prosperity. So your birth chart really offers such deep insight. It's going to show whether there are emotional or karmic wounds related to money, but also how to begin healing those patterns. That's the magnificence of astrology. It's not just showing us what is, but also what's the medicine. So how to heal these patterns. And it also shows in a very practical level the best ways for you to generate and to sustain financial flow in your life. But this is not just about predicting wealth or even labeling someone as lucky. Oh, this person will most likely make more money than this other person. It's so much more than that. It's really about understanding your personal money story and your personal money style. So that means how you naturally create and receive value. Where abundance flows, how, what is the flow of abundance in my life? Because that's going to be very different from person to person. And also what might be blocking it. Because, in astrology, in evolutionary astrology, this can go very deep. Often these patterns are profound and they're intricate. And again, they can really span across generations in your family, in your own past lives as well. So in this video, I want to give you some of the main financial significators in the chart so you can start to decode some of that. And the very first one is Venus. I think most people know that Venus is the planet that rules money, is the planet that speaks about physical things and how we attract resources. So the things you buy, what you value, it's very much about you spend your money on the things that, well, the things you need, but also the things that you value, the things that, you know, carry meaning for you. So for some people, they're going to value organic food, eating really, really healthy. So they're going to spend their money on that, on the best possible quality food they can find. Other people, they want the fast cars. Others want the latest tech. Others want to actually, they live very, very simply. They just care very little about material things. They're those people that wear the same shirts over and over again, or they have the same pair of shoes for so many years until it completely falls apart. So each person has their own relationship with money. And your Venus placement shows exactly that story, how you relate to money, how you relate to abundance, what you value, where you spend your money, how you attract resources in your life, how you make money, your salary, your income, and also your natural talents and skills that often become pathways to earning. And many times, some of these talents and skills are natural to you, the things that you're good at naturally. But of course, they can also be acquired through education, through experiences, but they ultimately are the skills that allow you to generate an income, money coming in. So there is here, and this is so important, and this is so much about what Venus speaks about. There is a direct connection between money and self-worth. When your value is high, when you feel good about yourself and you feel confidence, when people want your service, right? When people want what you're selling, your skills, whatever it is, when you believe in your own worth, it's like very much like an open door saying, money come in, I deserve it, right? So that means that if your Venus is under pressure, for example, let's just say your Venus is connected to Saturn or Venus is connected to Pluto, this can show blocks in self-worth. This can show difficulty receiving. This can show even past lives or even in this particular life where there were situations of scarcity, limitation, where maybe you had, something and then someone takes it from you, for example. And sometimes, we can really go back to childhood as simply as, your toy and someone, for example, another child coming in and taking it. So there's a lot here about physical things. And many times this is about poverty consciousness as well. So at a soul level, there's a soul story, maybe coming from past lives where this was part of your reality. Um, these money difficulties, these blocks, these um, even going through deep poverty, misery, not having, you know, food on your plate, being in terrible situations where money was so not available. So it can be, wounds and pain and difficulty in receiving or wanting to protect your resources and being really conscious about financial betrayal, et cetera, and so forth. There could be so many different examples here. But what I want to get to is that from a soul level, there can be this soul story here being played out where this was part of your reality, this was part of your past lives, but also this might be a part of your own ancestry story, those who came before you, and how that might be connected to what's being passed down, the stories that have been passed down generation to generation. So if you, for example, have these aspects, have these stories playing out in your life, this is not the end of the story. This is not the finish line. For example, going back to Venus, Saturn, and Venus, Pluto, they carry such a deep evolutionary lesson here, a deep evolutionary necessity to heal, to transform, those limitations and to ultimately rise. So you'll often see these people with challenging Venus aspects go through very much this rags to riches journey. These configurations, Venus, Saturn, Venus, Pluto, can show immense wealth once the inner story shifts, right? So Venus is a big one, and also Venus natural domain, which is the second house, is also very, very important. So look at your second house and see what's going on. What planets are in your second house? What sign opens the second house? Okay. So again, the second house has to do with income, has to do with worth, and has to do with possessions. So how you earn money, how you spend money, your resources, and your relationship with material worth and energetic worth as well. Okay. So again, look at the planets inside the second house, look at the sign on the cusp of your second house, and then look at the ruling planet of the second house and where it is in your chart, where it lands in your chart. For example, let's just say that the sign on the cusp of your second house is Sagittarius. The ruler of Sagittarius is Jupiter. Okay, so look at where your Jupiter is in what sign and what house, and that Jupiter will give you a lot more pieces to the story, a deeper understanding. With astrology, it's never just one thing. It's very much like doing detective work and in bringing these pieces together. So again, second house is the house that speaks of your earning capacity and your confidence in receiving. This is really important. And also the kind of work or energetic exchange that can bring you income. Which takes me to the next one, Mercury, your Mercury placement and your sixth house. Even though they're not directly related to money, they're all about work, employment, and service. So that also means, it can show you how you can make a salary, what kind of work is in alignment with you, what kind of work is good for you, what kind of work brings fulfillment and also brings the practical tools, the resources, the income. Another significator for employment is Neptune in the 12th house. And this is based on the work of my teacher, Maurice Fernandez. If you want to understand this in depth, he has an incredible book and incredible classes explaining how Neptune and the 12th house are associated with employment in our service because through the 12th house and through our Neptune placement, we tap into the collective consciousness and we address a public need through some sort of a public, it's what you're putting out into life. Um, so this axis of Mercury, Neptune, Virgo, Pisces, and sixth house, 12th house, even though, I'm just going to repeat myself, even though they're not directly connected to money, they are in a way because they're all about work, employment, and service, which means how we can generate, an income and finances. Okay, so look at those as well because they're important pieces to the puzzle. Now, the other really important one is Pluto. Pluto and the eighth house. They speak about shared wealth and they speak about power. So the second house and your Venus is what you earn, right? The eighth house is when you share it, or sometimes even inheritance, because this house rules investments. It's when you're bringing your portion and mixing it with other people's. So this could be joint assets, this could be inheritance, this can be joint bank accounts. It's what happens many times when you get married, for example, right? Or through a business partnership as well. So it's that experience of shared finances. So that's one like level to the eighth house and to your Pluto. But the other really important thing is about power. So this is about money as a tool for transformation, right? Um, because it is about, the eighth house in Pluto reveals transformation through financial and emotional entanglement. So here is where you have issues around power, trust, control, intimacy, like all of those things are woven into our relationship with resources. So money isn't just about wealth, right? It's about growth. It's about power. It's about how we value ourselves and the world around us, right? So through our Pluto, we understand the different values of material assets, and that's where you do a lot of the self-worth work. And a lot of times, our self-worth can be measured through financial wealth, right? And it is a part of it because, again, when those doors are open, you feel confident, your self-worth, your self-esteem is high. It is very much like you're opening these doors and saying, I deserve it. I deserve money to come into my field, right? But this not should, but you shouldn't be limited by it in the sense that your self-worth shouldn't be defined by money. And these are the lessons of the eighth house, to not let money control you, whether it's through fear, fear not having, worry, right? Or maybe even being seduced by money. So if I have wealth, if I have money, people will want to hang out with me, or people will like me, or people will respect me, right? I'll have something to offer. So this mindset never leads to lasting satisfaction. So this is where through our Pluto and through our eighth house, we have these deep shifts in our values and how ultimately success is measured over time. And success can mean very different things, especially during different phases in our lives. So it's the house and the planet that help us purge whatever doesn't serve us anymore. So all of those stories that we've been carrying, the wounds, the ancestral patterns, through our Pluto, we can really look at them. We can face them, we can confront them, and then we do the work. And then we go to therapy, and then we work on ourselves. We do the emotional, the deep, deep work. So this is the house and the planet that help us to become more creative, reinvent ourselves, grow, and through all of these actions, we can generate more, right? So we learn from our mistakes in this house. We refine our processes, we refine ourselves. And um and it can also bring these deep shifts in values and how success is defined over time. So look at your Pluto, look at where Scorpio is in your birth chart, and look at your eighth house. And you can also see here a lot of financial cycles. You gain wealth, you lose wealth. Really good phases where money's coming in and you're feeling great, and then other phases where it's not so great, because ultimately there can be lessons in trust, lessons in what needs to be transformed, what needs to be reevaluated. Um, and the intention is to emerge each time with more strength and more wisdom. So that's why I said in the beginning, when you see these Venus, Pluto aspects in the chart, shows that yes, there is work to do, but it's very much the rise from poverty to wealth. It's to create abundance. And that it pushes you to grow and to evolve, and to let go ultimately what no longer serves you, right? So it's through our Pluto in their eighth house where we really step fully into our power and potential. So it's not just about money, it's that evolution through money. So very deep and very, very important. And then the last one that I want to mention is the planet Jupiter, which has everything to do with growth, expansion, and financial luck, even. So when Jupiter, wherever Jupiter is in your chart, to look at the house, the sign, and the aspects, it can also reveal in how you can experience the financial growth and ease and support, right? Especially when you are really aligned with your natural gifts and your soul purpose. Jupiter can really show the opportunities. And Jupiter transits also, whenever Jupiter meets your Venus, whenever Jupiter's transiting your second house or in your 10th house, like these are times where there can't be income growth, promotions, new career directions, new opportunities. It's this, it can bring these, yeah, it can bring opportunities. Jupiter in your sixth house, it can be expansion through your very much about employment. So it's a time where you can be working a lot, but there can be new experiences and situations that can then bring a new, some sort of a growth in your finances. Jupiter in your 10th house, again, career breakthroughs, recognition, promotions, financial elevation. So Jupiter can really show these, again, these doors opening up. But with Jupiter, with actually any planet, any astrological configuration, there's always going to be a shadow side. There's always going to be an opportunity. There's always going to be, incredible potential, but also risks. And that's where we need to be careful about. So the shadow side of Jupiter is that inflation isn't always just money. Again, Jupiter expands everything, the good and the challenging. So, yes, you might see more money, but there can also be more expenses, more risk, more debt if you're not grounded. Because Jupiter can inflate optimism. It's where you feel very very confident and you can overspend, you can gamble on things or ideas or projects that are not yet stable. So through Jupiter, there's always that tendency towards indulgence. It's like, yes, it will work out. It's going to work out for the best. In the end, it's all going to be good and okay, which can be a gift, but also a trap. By the way, I have a video really explaining the connections between Jupiter and Saturn in our natal chart and how it's very important for us to learn how to dance with those two giants. So if you haven't seen that yet, please do check it out. But yes, with Jupiter, for example, Jupiter Venus, yes, there might be amazing opportunities for more money to come into your life, but also be more aware of taking too many risks, of overspending, of more debt. And again, gambling in things that are not so sure quite yet. Okay, so just some examples. I want to give you some examples, some configurations going back to Venus. So if you have Venus in Aries, or Venus connected to Mars, or Venus in your first house, financial independence is a must, financial autonomy. So these are the people who need to be creative. They need to take risks. They have this strong drive to initiate projects. They're very entrepreneurial. They're the ones who come up with the startups and they're the self-made paths and the go-getters type of people. And these are often, the women who will not want to rely on a partner for support. It's very much about, I need to make my own money. It's mine, right? Because money is seen as a pathway for freedom, for experience, for adventure. So these are the people that are more spontaneous with, money spending. They can be very impatient with the slow financial growth, like they want the quick wins. Um, and they may struggle with budgeting or long-term financial planning. They want to see the immediate results. Now, let's just say you have Venus in Capricorn, or Venus in the 10th house, or Venus in the MC or midheaven, or Venus in connection to Saturn. Money is about accomplishment, stability. Money is a way to measure success. It shows that if I have money, if I have money in my bank account, my life is working, my life is stable. There's such a strong desire with Venus in Capricorn or Venus Saturn to create something, to build something that lasts. Maybe it's a business, maybe it's a legacy, maybe it's, the family structure, maybe it's some sort of a body of work, but it's something that is reliable, something that is strong and tangible and lasting. So money is a reflect of my hard work, of my commitment, of my discipline. And these are the people who are going to be more careful about financial decisions. They're going to be more budget conscious. They're going to be more aware of waste. They're going to value sustainability. And Venus in Aries wants quick wins. Venus in Capricorn is all about slow but steady growth. So these are the long-term wealth builders. So remember, those are the people that can encounter hardships early on, work through a lot of limitations, but those are the people that when they make it, they really, really make it. So there's a deep lesson here about learning that their value isn't just about what you produce. So the risk is overworking, it's a lot of self-denial, it's a lot of rigid standards, but deep down there can be this need to release scarcity and fear-based patterns around money and really finding joy and pleasure in the process, just not on the outcome. Venus in Aquarius, Venus in the 11th house, Venus Uranus aspect. These are the tech people. They love technology. They love the latest. They want quality. They want the fastest, the newest. They have expensive taste. And they're not necessarily people who will have many things, but whatever they have, it's good quality. It's excellent quality. So they're going to be, their taste is going to be more refined and more expensive. And they can even be a little futuristic, oriented and like the cutting edge. So these people value intellect, they value originality over tradition. So the lesson here, the evolutionary intention with Venus in Aquarius is to elevate and upgrade not just your gadgets, but your financial mindsets, your lifestyle, the way you make money, the way you spend money. So there's this forward movement here in terms of how you earn and how you value resources. So there can be unconventional values and very progressive tastes, so these are the people that can be already in these industries and spending money on or generating money in things that are outside of, the norm. Um, and luxury here can be about investing in green tech and digital currencies and crypto and, all of that digital frontier. Aquarius, so Venus in Aquarius, Aquarius rules the digital realm. So many of these places, many of people with these placements will be um, connecting with digital innovation and sometimes online communities, and they can generate money through networks, through community, through collaborating with others, through um, alliances and friendships and social groups and some sort of a collective effort. Venus in Aquarius is wired for collaboration, not competition, So they do best when their money is tied to some sort of a shared vision. Venus in Cancer, Venus in the fourth house, Venus connected to the moon. This can be a lot of, because the moon is home. Income here can't be tied to real estate, family assets, inheritance. So the parents, the family can, provide resources. They can maybe fund their education, or even there could be some sort of a family business, real estate. And these people are often skilled in creating beauty, creating comfort within domestic spaces. So their type of income can come from interior design, some sort of, the hospitality industry, anything that brings that strong emotional connection is really important here. Also, strong emotional connection to material security. So having money here it's so much about feeling, money is deeply tied to feelings of safety, belonging. So they might have a strong desire to own property, establishing roots and creating a nest, right? So when there's, in the flows of life, when things are not very stable, they can feel very emotionally vulnerable and unstable here. They spend money on making home a sanctuary, so they may invest heavily in like cozy or even luxurious domestic environments and decorations and the extra comfortable pillows. It's like home is where a lot of money is spent on to make home my little nest, my little sanctuary. And these are also the people that can become very attached to sentiments, to possessions, to heirlooms and family little treasures and these objects from years ago, or for the object, this belonged to my grandma, that, etc. and so forth. So money habits here are very, very strongly inherited from parents or family lineage. And this could also be, you know, abundance or some sort of a scarcity mindset. And then the last one, Venus in Leo, fifth house, and the sun. This placement is very vibrant, very expressive, and deeply connected with joy, creativity, self-worth. So money is not just a tool, it's a stage for self-expression. It's money money's supposed to serve life. Money is a way for us to celebrate our lives. So there's a strong desire to enjoy the fruits of labor. Wealth is meant to be seen, shared. There's so much generosity. Money is supposed to be celebrated, right? Money should enhance life instead of controlling. So it's, Venus in Leo, Venus in the fifth house, Venus in aspects to the sun. There's generosity, but there can also be extravagance, like overindulging, spending. Spending is often an act of love, confidence, celebration. These are the people that are prone, they're often tied to investments. They're risk takers. They like gold, they like jewelry, they like luxury, they like, arts and all those long-term assets that can bring prestige and creative value. So money can't be attracted and made from creative ventures, personal branding, performing, entertainment, anything that allows them to shine, to take the stage. So they're going to be highly creative. And talents may translate into profitable creative work. Design, entertainment, music, theater. And children, if you have Venus in Leo, your children might require significant financial support or become a source of abundance and also pride. So there can be a lot of money spent on children, their education, their hobbies, their lifestyles. So these are the people that need to make money by really connecting with their purpose. There's no way around this. They need to connect with their hearts. And sometimes there might be a lesson about, sometimes what your heart desires is not necessarily what everyone is doing. Maybe it's about being an artist or being an astrologer. So there could be that, but also it's about learning to balance generosity with discernment, because Venus and Leo may need to heal ego wounds related to status, success, being seen. And when I don't have it, then I feel less than, right? So learning sometimes to receive support without shame can be part of the journey. And so money can really boost their sense of identity and confidence, but it's essential not to over-identify with material success. And actually, I'll do one more. Venus in Pisces, Venus in the 12th house, and Venus in aspects to Neptune. Money can come effortlessly. There can be financial blessings that appear mysteriously. It can be through gifts, inheritance, partners, synchronicity, unexpected situations. Money can come very, very easily without much effort, without hard work. There's always this sort of faith here and this kind of, it will work out. And surprisingly, many times it actually does. These can be people who are not very interested in material accumulation. They live very simple lives and they own very little. They can find richness in experience rather than things. They might dislike money management, budgeting, spreadsheets, strict financial planning can feel very soulless, very confusing. They might prefer to hand financial control to other people or even ignore it. And they can be those people that, those people that have that mindset of what's mine is yours. This could be with money, this could be with time, this could be with affection, this could be with their energy, it could be with anything. So there can be such a beautiful heart here and a strong desire to share what they have, to help, very compassionate, to give without keeping score, really. And these people are more motivated by compassion and trust than gaining more or security. But here's also the vulnerability with Venus in Pisces or Venus Neptune or Venus in the 12th house is that they can be very naive. They can be overly trusting, especially in business partnerships or even in love. So, because they're so open and giving and trusting and generous, there can be financial deception. There can be all sorts of rescuer or victim dynamics. Sometimes they're the one rescuing, other times they can be the victim. So, all sorts of like unbalanced relationships where they're giving more than they're receiving, and then they're hurt, and then they're betrayed, and that's where they can shift into paranoia, withdrawal, hoarding. So instead of that, that openness and generosity and empathy, they can become very, very frugal and closed off and attaching to things too much. So they lost trust. They don't trust anymore. Um, there can also be this deep conflict between the spiritual and the material world. This is an intersection here. So there can be guilt. They can struggle with guilt around money, believing it's unspiritual. So having money, the desire to have money, all of these things can be not very spiritual. And because they're naturally, Pisces is a part of us. We all have Pisces somewhere. It's a part of us that long for transcendence and unity. And at the same time, we all live in a world that demands boundaries, accounting, planning, right? So there can be with Venus and Pisces a lesson in incarnating through the body in the material dimensions of things. So I hope this makes sense. I hope you enjoyed this very quick overview of some of the key financial significators in the chart. Of course, for a full picture understanding, we need to look at the entire chart and how these players are positioned by house, what aspects they make to other planets, what's being activated by transits, by progressions. That's also really important, and so on. But even on their own, just by what I just went through, they offer such a powerful starting point for understanding your relationship with money, and not just how you make it, but how you make it in a way that is aligned with your nature, with your soul's lessons, and ultimately your deeper purpose, right? And also helping to illuminate how you might begin to repair or rewire your financial patterns in a way that feels authentic and empowering and sustainable, right? If you like this video, don't forget to like it, to subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet, and I would love to hear about your Venus, your Pluto, your Jupiter. Where are they at? On that note, I will see you next time.